False hopes for reversing global dying. In 1982, this writer wrote that rising CO2 would change rainfall such that we would die from global drying deluges before global warming kills us. In spring 2006, he concluded that humanity had passed the tipping point. More specifically, he concluded three other things. By 2010, national food riots would begin. He was wrong. Food riots started in 2008. By 2012, failed states would appear. He was wrong. In 2010, riots protesting failed national economic policies occurred in many nations: Ireland, England, France, Spain, Italy, and Greece. By 2015, 90% of people will be dead from a massive collapse of the food chain as a result of massive droughts and flooding. Examples: 2010 Russian fires, Pakistani floods, and Australian floods. In 2010, he concluded that we may have passed the recovery point. Once you have fallen into the abyss, there is no point of return. When it benefits media and politicians to talk global warming, they offer a lot of false hopes. In reviewing the following, remember that reducing CO2 sinning is not enough to stop global dying. False hope. Cap and trade is basically, I'll trade you 3 dirty whores for 1 clean virgin. As this does not stop prostitution, nor does cap and trade stop CO2 sinning. Double diapering describes false hopes which merely delay and worsen the inevitable. Double diapering is like putting a bigger second diaper on a baby whose first diaper should be cleaned. Double diapering includes promises of algae, goats, and sequestering. Double diapering is doo-doo thinking. False hope. Sequestering CO2 will inevitably lead to a blowout on par with the British Petrophilia Gulf of Mexico deep water blowout. In Africa's fetid volcanic lakes, sudden release of gases trapped on the bottom have quietly and quickly killed thousands. Putting CO2 in the ground or under the ocean is like having a pressure cooker without a release valve. At a certain point, the sequestered CO2 will release all the imprisoned molesters at once, a volcanic eruption of destruction. Sequestering CO2 is like letting a baby's diaper keep accumulating doo-doo until an explosive rip scatters the scat with unpleasant consequences. False hope. Compact fluorescent bulbs. A teaspoon of savings in an ocean of CO2. Going from incandescent light bulbs to fluorescent bulbs will save about 1 pound of CO2 per day. Thus, if one wants to cancel one's annual CO2 sinning by replacing light bulbs, one needs to replace 130,000 light bulbs. In 2006, 88 million were sold. 1 million bulbs canceled the CO2 cancer of 7 or 8 people. Thus, 88 million bulbs canceled the CO2 sinning of about 600 people. Beyond the mathematical farce and false hopes of CFBs is the higher cost, false life length, and toxic waste, for example, mercury. False hope. Plant a tree. If your toilet is stopped up, do you keep dumping in it? Failure to unclog a toilet and continuing to use it merely delays the moment of doo-doo overload. Likewise with efforts to reduce CO2 by planting more trees. When the trees die, bacteria decompose them into CO2. Planting trees is like continuing to use a stopped-up toilet. The day will come when the trees will finally die and stinkingly rot like the stench of a double-diapered baby. For the average person to cancel this year's carbon dioxide release into the atmosphere by planting oak trees, he would have had to plant 25 acres of oak trees 25 years ago. For just 1 year, Americans would have to plant 7.5 billion acres or 900 million square miles. That's more area than the Earth has arable land. False hope. Alternative fuels. Nuclear, hydrogen, biofuels, wind and solar power are not the answer if you look at them from cradle to grave. The promise of ethanol has repeatedly been found to cause more CO2 thinning. It would be better to outlaw all ethanol for fuel production. But the habitual politicians get campaign contributions from the ethanol crowd. Fuel or food, fools or fool. Ethanol production drives up grain prices as corn is taken out of the human food chain for the human fuel manacles. As Nevada farmers say of Las Vegas wanting Nevada's water, craps or crops. False hope. Algae biofuel trades one hydrocarbon source for another without a reduction in CO2 thinning. Another double-diapering self-delusion. Coal, shale, and tar sands. CO2 is CO2, regardless of the source of hydrocarbons, also known as fossil fuels. False hope. Nuclear energy. It takes a decade to build a nuclear plant. Too little, too late, with the universal cry of NIMBY. Besides, in recent years, France closed down nuclear reactors because the coolant water ponds were too hot to cool the reactors. By the time more reactors are built, the water will be too hot, if any is left after what is boiled off from global dying. False hope. Hydrogen vehicles have historically had some problems. More importantly for global warming, how is the H2 produced? Burning CO2? Nuclear energy? False hope. Solar power. It is too late to generate enough electricity to maintain the lifestyles of the American CO2 sinners and the un-American CO2 wannabes. False hope. Electric cars. Where does the electricity come from? Electric cars indirectly burn CO2 thinning fossil fuels. And what happens when the already strained electrical grid crashes? People die in hot homes and hospitals. No free lunches, just doo-doo thinking. False hope. Back to the land. When the city folk have no food, they will go out to the land to find those who have stockpiled food and announce it by running generators. Backtoers cannot escape the following environmental inevitabilities of more CO2 sins. See Alpha Trifecta and Burn Baby Burn. When continental fires rage out of control, the back-to-landers will see their survival milieu burn up like the canyon homes of Californians who wanted to escape the cities. False hope. Green jobs are grown jobs. Most are life-killing jobs. Jobs for the sake of jobs are like being different for the sake of being different. Neither improves the quality of life. With global dying accelerating from overpopulation, the only green jobs are morticians, vasectomists, and serial murderers. Most false hopes are founded and funded by habitual politicians who don't know doo-doo about anything except re-election. For their re-election, they reward campaign funders and campaign workers with undeserved rewards. Reversing global dying from greenhouse gases will not be achieved by greed-fostering false hopes. Of course, you don't have to worry about hope if you deny you have a cancer.